No, they'll never want you to know that this is the real truth. Hey, it's your girl, Lakana Class, with Soul Cipher Secrets and Birthright Recaps, bringing you the truth always about you, about me. I hold all my truths to be self-evident, okay? Now, family, episode 5 of Birthright Truths is going to be on 3/5 at morality, law, and the soul trap. So finally, today we're going to slow things down and really examine the systems that hold us. Not just the chains of the past, but the invisible contracts that still bind us today. Because most people don't know. They're walking around with no clue. I'm talking about they're caught up in legal webs that was designed hundreds of years ago to strip them of their humanity, their identity, and their direct connection to source. Let's start with, who are you? You are not just flesh and blood, and not just skin and bone. You are 9 ether beings. The original, the source manifested in human form. That means your existence is older than governments, older than constitutions, older than the ink on any so-called law. And yet, the first thing they did was to rewrite who you are on paper. Now, most of us have heard of the 3/5 compromise, but let me break this down for you so you can feel the weight of it. In 1787, when the United States Constitution was being put together, they had to decide how to enslave Africans. How enslaved Africans then would be counted. Not as full people, not as equals, but as 3/5 of a person. 3/5, not a whole, a fraction. That's not funny. I mean, but this is the mind of these people. That's not just a legal decision. But it's 3/5 of a person, 3/5, not whole, a fraction. That is psychological warfare. That is taking the eternal, infinite being and reducing them to a math problem on a consensus form. Imagine what that does, not only to the people living in that time, but to the generations after that who inherit the residue of being seen as less than human. But here's where it gets deeper. Because the 3/5 rule wasn't about recognizing humanity, it was about power and money. The South wanted to count enslaved Africans to boost their representation in Congress, but not give them rights. In other words, your body was used for someone else's political gain, while your mind and soul were being dismissed as irrelevant. That's the template. And from that template, every system that followed, tax codes, prison system, education, laws, voting rights, housing, medical, and you get it, was built on that same mindset, on that same template. You exist for the benefit of another, but not for your own. Now let's move to abmorality, maritime, and commercial law. This is where the trap gets invisible. Now, after slavery ended, they didn't free you, they transferred you. Okay? They moved you from the plantation to the contract, from chains on the body to chains on paper, sort of say. Abmorality, the law of the sea, was applied to human beings on land through the birth certificate. Okay? Now, I told you guys that the government owned you and your children, and how. And this goes a little deeper into that. Now, let's move into abmorality, maritime, and commercial law. This is where the trap gets invisible. Again, after slavery ended, they didn't free you, they transferred you. They moved you from the plantation to the contract, from chains on the body to chains on paper. Abmorality law, the law of sea, was applied to human beings on land. Though birth certificates, social security numbers, and names written in all caps, you were turned into a corporation, a legal fiction. Instead of a living soul, you became a vessel, a commodity, floating on the sea of commerce. Think about it. Your mother's womb, treated as a dock, and your birth as a delivery. Delivered like cargo. Register into a system that trades you as a property of the state. That's why your birth certificate looks like a bond, because it is. This is not conspiracy. This is contract law. Your very existence monetized from the moment you entered this world. And when you ask, why would they do this? The answer is simple. Greed. Now let's tie this to the trauma of the African culture and minority altogether. The body was attacked with slavery, prison, medical experiments, environmental toxins, sex, reproducing, sex slaves. That'll be a whole nother episode. The mind was attacked with religion as control, miseducation, and false history, propaganda. The soul was attacked by severing your memory of who you are, by banning the drum, silencing the tongue, erasing the ancestral connections. Okay? So you don't have a grandpa, granddad, but they do. You don't have history, because they got it. This is what I call the trauma cycle. It wasn't random. It was designed to keep you disorientated and disconnected so you could be controlled generation after generation. And here's the question I want to put on the table. Who would want these odds stacked against themselves and their descendants? Because I put on my whole suit of armor in authority, in the Christ code, and declare a proclamation to send, to return to sender all propaganda designated and designed unto the chosen, past, present, and future. Who would willingly choose to live under a system where their body, mind, and soul are turned into property? I would imagine no one and nobody. That's why this had to be forced. That's why it had to be normalized. Because no sane people would accept these odds voluntarily. So why is it okay? Why is it normalized? Because the system was never about fairness or equality. It was about survival. Their survival at your expense. Nine ether beings carry the original code, the eternal frequency. That means you can't be erased unless you forget yourselves. So the plan was simple. Make you forget, replace your identity with theirs. Make you believe their laws, their books, their contracts to have authority over your soul. But here's the truth. A lie doesn't come. Wait a minute. But here's the proof. A lie doesn't become truth just because it's normalized. A trap doesn't stop being a trap just because generations have lived inside it. And your body, your mind, your soul, non-ether beings, they are not for sale, not for trade, and not for tax. This is the heart of the matter. There was a great fear. Oh, they had a great fear. But their great fear was never our weakness. It was our power. The system feared what would happen if non-ether beings woke up and remember who they are. Because once you reclaim body, mind, soul, no law on paper, no contract on file, no tax code in the books can hold you. And that's why we're here. Your girl Iconoclast. To expose the deception, to ask the hard questions, and to remind you of your birthright truths. And so it is. This has been your birthright recap. I am a servant and I have been of service. Have the very best day ever. Relearn, awake, and rise.